Testing, testing, testing. Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the Minister M.L. Kimble coming to you guys live. I did want to give you guys an update and provide you guys with the information concerning the complaint that we just filed today in the Lucas County Court of Common Pleas. We are waiting for the assignment of a case number as well as a judge to be responsible for the complaint that we have drafted and filed with Lucas County. The reason that we've decided that we're going to file this complaint, this particular complaint, in the Lucas County Court of Common Pleas is because due to the history of what we've experienced in Fulton County, even with the most recent action involving Judge Hazelman, where he, in the recent pretrial hearing that we had scheduled concerning our corporation, the HCV Distribution Corporation and State Farm, Judge Hazelman had to recuse himself from our case due to a conflict of interest. So, in other words, our case has now been put on the back burner again because we have to wait for an appointment of another judge, a visiting judge, to be appointed to judge the matter in our State Farm case. However, the McNeill Chevrolet complaint is a completely separate complaint that does not involve the State Farm complaint. However, there is speculation that there might have been some involvement from this establishment in the destruction of our minority-owned business, the HCV Distribution Corporation. Although we have not been able to prove this information, there is an ongoing investigation currently being conducted by the Ohio Civil Rights Commission into this establishment and its practices, where they have found official probable cause findings of racial discrimination towards African Americans. So the reality of this is this complaint was filed not because of the past experiences that I experienced as the former finance manager of this establishment, because due to the statute of limitations, it does limit any claims to be brought to the court concerning employment, limiting it to literally 2 years. I believe it's 2 years after that you can bring a claim. So this complaint is not to file charges because of the mistreatment that I experienced as the finance manager, but it does highlight the most recent actions of the dealership and dealership representatives, which does constitute a completely separate complaint. And that's why this particular complaint is now filed in court with Lucas County Court of Common Pleas as we're waiting court assignment. This is the drafting of the complaint, and I'm going to go ahead and review this with you all together so you guys can see what we are going to request from the courts. We are requesting a jury. I am prepared to go to trial in this matter. I have the evidence. The reality of it is I can represent myself in this situation because there's no need to add a legal representative to a matter that involves me when I am the one that has the experiences and the evidence of what has happened throughout this entire situation. So we'll just start right at the beginning. It says, in the Court of Common Pleas, Lucas County, Ohio, M.L. Kimble, plaintiff, McNeill Chevrolet, defendant, case number to be assigned by the court, complaint for racial discrimination, hostile work environment, retaliation, impersonation of law enforcement, and civil rights violations. Parties in jurisdiction: plaintiff Marquis Kimble is a resident of Lucas County, Ohio. Defendant McNeill Chevrolet is an Ohio business entity operating in Fulton County, employing more than 4 individuals and subject to Ohio Revised Code, ORC, Chapter 4112, entitled V2 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This court has jurisdiction under ORC 2305.01 and ORC Chapter 4112 as damages exceed $500 and involve violations of civil rights. So this is why we're filing in this particular court, because it does have jurisdiction over cases that involve civil rights violations. Factual allegations. Now, these are the complete facts of the case, which again, it paints the picture of this establishment. However, some of these facts cannot be, brought up as a complaint because, we're past the statute of limitations on some of these complaints. However, it does paint the picture of why it's important that these facts are highlighted. Factual allegations. Plaintiff was employed by defendant as finance manager from 2010 until his constructive discharge in 2018 due to pervasive racial harassment. That is 1,000% correct. What ended up happening, truthfully, with my resignation of this dealership was I had attempted to resign before I actually made the final resignation. And when I made the announcement that I was going to resign from the position, the dealership did everything in their power to prevent me from doing so. So they promised me all of these different things that they never did, keep. They made these promises to allow me to continue to work my side business, which was a credit restoration company. And what we were doing, what we specialized in was, working with minority customers that have credit issues and restoring credit and things like that. And so I had developed a strong customer base of credit restoration customers. And a lot of those customers would come to me to purchase a vehicle over the years throughout my time at that dealership. So the time that I resigned, when I finally made the resignation decision, at first I made this decision and I made the attempt to announce it to the dealership. And like I said, they said, hey, what can we do? We'll give you we'll allow you to keep your separate private office. You can work the hours you want to work. We won't change your pay. Just do not resign. We can still have you coming out here. You can bring your customers out here part-time, and we'll keep you happy and we'll get the banks out here to get your customers approved. We'll get subprime banks out here. We'll get more vehicles out here. And, we just don't want you to resign. So I agreed to these terms. And throughout my tenure there, I brought out a series of African-American customers to be approved for vehicles. And not only were they either denied or told they could not get this vehicle, they were restrained to only purchasing this vehicle or that vehicle. A lot of them were put into deals where they had to put more money down than what they wanted to put down. It was a complete difference of what they told me was going to happen to keep my customers happy and keep my customer base. So I was able to start to see how there was a difference in the treatment of what I experienced with my customers. And, the series of people that I brought out there, it was always an excuse of why they can't get this or why they can't get that, or what, we got to go get the car back. I was made to make sure you verify each and every person that has insurance before they buy a vehicle. However, if they were someone that bought from this dealership for 60 years and they came in here with the same exact expired insurance card, you better sign that car deal up or you're going to deal with it. So not only did I deal with this during this tenure, I was always told over and over again, you are the highest paid employee at this dealership. And it just got to the place where I said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to resign. And when I made that attempt, like I said, the dealership tried to keep me there, but they never kept up with their promise. They made these promises. They did not announce it to the sales staff. So it created a hostile working environment because the sales staff could not understand how I was working different hours than they were. I only had to come in half-time, part-time. I only brought in customers when I had a car sale. And they began to get jealous. And instead of management explaining the arrangement that they agreed with me, and it silently behind closed doors, they never told the sales staff anything. And then somehow, some way, it got out to the sales staff that I was still being paid what I was being paid because of the agreement that the dealership agreed to do. And instead of the dealership standing up and saying, yes, we agreed to this, this is what we agreed to keep Marquis Kimble employed here, they decided to change everybody's pay without any notice, which limited and literally reduced my pay to only $150 a week. And I suffered that for 6 months to try to attempting to support my family until I just finally had enough and resigned. But the reality of it is this was all a trickle down effect that started with the fact that I tried to attempt to resign because of the years of what I experienced at this dealership. Like I said, as the finance manager, I was always subjected to improper jokes, inappropriate jokes, racially charged jokes, being referred to as Harambe the Gorilla, being referred to as Toby, being referred to as the token black, jokes always being told. Black people like Kool-Aid, grape Kool-Aid and watermelon, or black people only buy cars with sunroofs so they have somewhere to throw their chicken wings out the window. These are the things that I tolerated silently for 7 years because it was not told to me, hey, you're going to be forced to take this because what we're paying you. But I was always made to feel like this is the best thing that you've ever had in your life. So do you really want to make noise on it? So I was kind of forced to kind of laugh off the jokes, laugh it off. Even when we had a get together at our home, it was for a birthday party. We invited everybody from the dealership. And of course, everybody at the dealership was Caucasian. So when they came to our home, which obviously we had a bunch of African Americans in my home because I'm African American. So my relatives were here. The first thing that the dealership did when they came in my home was they grabbed a balloon that was on the floor due to the party. And one of the guys grabs the balloon and he falls across the tape, all across the chairs in front of everybody, and says, "I've been shot," and fell on the floor. Now, it was a big joke to the dealership and they thought this was hilarious. But my mother and my mother-in-law and the people that were close to me, they were very offended by that because it illustrated what these guys assumed about us regardless. And the only reason that they did not come out and say it was because I was a cash cow at that dealership. You got to understand, for the 7 years I was employed there, most of every single month, I came in as the top finance manager out of 6 dealerships. So you're talking about McNeill Chevrolet, LaRich Chevrolet Cadillac, LaRich Toyota, every single month. In fact, I even won an award one year of holding the highest average amongst these dealers every single month. So the reality was I held the highest average out of the group of dealerships, yet I was the only African American, period. Now, I never experienced any mistreatment by LaRich Chevrolet Cadillac or his Toyota Cadillac, but because the reason why LaRich is involved and mentioned here is because LaRich at that time was majority owner of McNeill Chevrolet. So at the end of the day, his operations were not in Swanton, but he signed our paychecks. And although he was not day to day who I reported to, John LaRich had some say over what happened at that dealership. This is why we're mentioning LaRich Chevrolet Cadillac in this complaint. So that's the semi what of the backstory is here. So basically, as we continue here, during employment, plaintiff endured racial slurs, including Harambe the Gorilla, token black guy, and Toby, creating a hostile work environment under ORC 4112. These are facts. This is not made up. And the reason that I'm bringing this complaint is because I truly hope that these guys want to go to trial with me. I truly hope that these guys want to get on the stand and literally sit there and try to deny that this behavior was not only went on, but was excused. I can specifically remember certain people, which I will not name in this particular video, that literally referred to me as Robbie the Gorilla. Now, understand at that time, I was the finance manager. If you look at the rank of any dealership that has a finance manager, the finance manager is usually on the same rank as your sales managers, your new car managers. The executive management team of the dealership includes the finance manager. Why? Because every single dollar that the dealership makes comes through the finance office. So the reality is, even people that were beneath me, my subordinates, my salesmen, were able to get away with these type of jokes towards me because this was the environment. Now, once again, this complaint is not because of these instances, but it paints the picture as to what happened during my employment, which led up to the most recent actions concerning this dealership, which we will get into as we continue. Defendant failed to address plaintiff's complaints, leading to his resignation and financial harm. That's correct. Once again, my very first week of being employed at this dealership, I had to suffer an inappropriate, racially charged joke in front of the entire lunch staff that literally resulted in the person that made the joke being disciplined or reprimanded, so they say. And it was supposedly a write-up put into this guy's file documenting my very first week and what I experienced at this dealership. The very first week of employment there was an inappropriate joke that was said during lunch in the conference room that was excused. And it wasn't until I made a stink about it and continued to press the issue to where it was then brought to Human Resources, Linda Lee's office, and the person that made the joke did receive a write-up that was supposedly on file with the dealership. Now, that was the only time there was any consequence for this behavior, although it constantly went on throughout the 7 years. I'm telling you, jokes about Afro Sheen, jokes about cocoa butter. I mean, just every single day, whether it was somebody from management, somebody from sales, or it was just customers from the dealership, people that had come in for years, that I just took this behavior. Because when you take a person that did not have a college degree in his late 20s, trying to do better for his family, and you give him a position where he's making over $100,000 a year, you give him a free car to drive, then realistically, that afforded my family a different life. It allowed my family to experience things that a lot of people that I grew up with never got to experience. So it put me in a position where you just kind of just take it, even though it burned me up every single day. There are people, friends and family that can verify the times I get off of work at that dealership and they would just say to me, I don't know how you can tolerate it. How you put up with it is beyond me. But the reality was, I wanted my children to be raised in a decent home, in a different area, decent schools. And the reality was, I said, hey, it's not that big of a deal. I just kind of brushed the stuff off. But the reality of it is, you have to always remember, it doesn't matter who's paying you, how much they're paying you, who cares what they're paying you. Does not give them the right to mistreat you and violate the law because they're paying you a paycheck. Once again, this dealership gave me nothing. They only guaranteed me a $20,000 per year draw. Let me explain that to you guys that don't understand. What that means is every single Friday, they gave me an advance on my pay, which was about $500 every single week. And then every single month, when we received our pay from our performance, I had to pay that back. So they did not give me anything. I earned six figures a year because I exceeded the goals that they gave me every single time, which allowed me to earn a substantial income. Now, but if you're earning this income, but you have to deal with every day, what do I got better be careful on what I even put on to come to work, because I know somebody's going to say something if the color's not too right. I even was told at one point, they pulled me in the office and told me and had a conversation with me about the clothing I was wearing, telling me that it wasn't good for the area that I was in. Now, I don't know where in the law it's okay for your employer to dictate your clothing if it's not in violation of the dress code. However, this was the way they made me feel, so I had to wear a certain hat for 7 years until I just could not take it anymore. So this led to his resignation and financial harm. In 2021, plaintiff co-founded the HCV Distribution Corporation in Swanton, Ohio. And on January 17, 2022, the business was burglarized. Law enforcement, specifically Swanton Police Department, delayed the response by over an hour, exacerbating losses. Let me break that down and expound on that a little bit more. Our store alarms alarmed and alerted the Swanton Police Department at 6:32 a.m. that there was a disturbance occurring at our business. Their office was located 0.2 miles from our former business. Explain to me why they did not respond until over an hour after being notified. That's where the scam actually starts and begins, because the reality of it is I reside 20 miles from the business, yet they were notified the moment there was a disturbance at our business, but then they decided to investigate me wrongfully, interrogate me wrongfully, obtain my fingerprints wrongfully, and then wrongfully accuse me for insurance fraud and spread this information around to the public. Went around Swanton that I was up to some no good, trying to run an insurance scam all throughout the town. And it started with the Swanton Police Department. But they refused to tell the public that, wait a second, our chief notified us at 6:32 a.m. that right around the corner from our law enforcement agency, there's an alarm going off at a business that's predominantly, first of all, a only minority-owned business in the city. Secondly, it's right around the corner, across the street from the mayor, next door to Tano's Pizza. If McNeill Chevrolet's alarms went off, or Tano's Pizza's alarms went off, or any other business in that city, there's no way that the Swanton Police Department would have taken over an hour to respond and then investigate the victim as the suspect. It's the most ridiculous mistreatment that we could have ever experienced. They neglected our business and then mistreated me like I was some kind of a criminal, despite the fact I've never been in trouble in my life, and I currently am an active, official sworn notary for Lucas County. You can't be a notary with a background. However, they were able to publish these false accusations throughout the town, and yet nothing was done about it. This is why we have a separate complaint in Fulton County highlighting exactly what transpired between the Swanton Police Department, State Farm, our former agent, State Farm agent Jeff Lambert. There's an entire separate complaint highlighting those violations. But this particular complaint is to highlight specifically the activity of this dealership and their representatives up until last week, despite the complaints and all of the things that are going on. During the investigation conducted by State Farm, defendant's representative, Jason Koss, impersonated law enforcement and was monitoring my social media platforms. We recorded documented evidence of this guy going to my personal social TikTok platform that had 5,000 followers at one point, to we now have had to close that down out of safety reasons, because what the hell is my former employer, my former direct boss, consistently monitoring my personal social media platforms? This is an invasion of privacy and a violation of law. And then, like I said, we are no longer connected on a professional level, so you would have no reason to be going to my personal social media platforms habitually unless there was some other motive behind it. So not only did this guy attempt or contact me impersonating the Swanton Police Department, which we have on recording, literally identifies and says that he's from the Swanton Police Department. Now, I wouldn't have ever brought up my former past treatment of what I went through with this dealership had they never tried to contact me impersonating the Swanton Police Department. Because now it brings question as to why nobody was investigated or questioned at this dealership by State Farm. You're conducting an investigation, then you should have damn well contacted my former employer for 7 years and questioned or got a character witness or anything. They did not even attempt to contact McNeill Chevrolet whatsoever, which is another part of the complaint concerning State Farm. Okay, but during this investigation, Mr. Koss contacted me impersonating the same exact law enforcement agency that mistreated me. Now, understand that the complaints that were filed with the Swanton Police Department against the Swanton Police Department were filed directly with the Swanton mayor. I have direct inbox conversations between me and the mayor, Swanton Mayor Neil Tope, literally highlighting what his officers did to me. And his response of a promise that he gave me was he would get another law enforcement agency involved to help investigate our case. And as soon as we retained legal representation, they decided to drop the case without any further investigations or suspects. You want to explain that to me? What happened to the extra investigation, Mr. Mayor, that you promised? It never happened. That's why we got to hold these elected officials accountable. What are you coming into the office for if you can't even stand up and defend a business that you know was destroyed in your town? How do we have a grand opening, cutting a ribbon with the mayor in right downtown one moment, and then the next moment something happens and nobody stands up and defends us? For 2 years, we've had to fight it. 2 years. And now the judge had to sign off again. Why? Because of a conflict of interest. The same conflict of interest that he had 2 years ago. Why did it take until April for the judge to finally say, I shouldn't be judging this case? This is why this complaint is going to be heard in Lucas County. Why? Because the phone call made where the representative of McNeill's made impersonating law enforcement, that was made to me in Lucas County. So we're done playing the game in Fulton County. This matter will be heard in Lucas County. Too many people in Fulton County know each other. Oh, we're golfing buddies. Oh, you're over in my son-in-law's backyard for a barbecue. I'm sick of that. We need a fair case, and we need a fair opportunity, a fair trial. And I am seeking a trial. I don't want these scams had plenty of opportunities to settle this matter, and they just chose to ignore it. So now let's bring it to the public. Let's go to trial, because I promise you, I will not waste the court's time. I can support every single piece of this complaint that is alleged. None of this is made up. And the dealership's representatives know this. Mr. Cauze threatened to sever business ties if Mr. Kimble plaintiff pursued legal action. That is 1,000% yet again another factual fact that happened that nobody even took a look at or questioned. I received a phone call from Mr. Cauze saying, I'm hearing through the grapevine, through the city, that you're planning on suing the Swanton Police Department. Now, at this time, I hadn't even thought about doing this, or there wasn't even any thoughts about this. However, when I said to him, no, I hadn't, then his response to me was, if I was planning on going to go after the Swanton Police Department, the dealership would have to disassociate themselves with me. Now, you want to explain that to me? Is it because you guys donate money to the Swanton Police Department every single year during Christmas? What's the reason that you're telling me that if I tell anybody how these bastards mistreated me and they were supposed to be protecting and serving the law, that you threatened to sever our 7-year business built relationship from customers that I've referred out there from the time I sat in your finance chair, not to mention the dealership's employees were buying products from our retail location. So we had all of this going on, but all of a sudden, when it's told to you by somebody throughout the city that there were plans of me coming after the Swanton Police Department, you then tell me if that's the case, you're going to have to disassociate yourself with me. And I'm supposed to believe, like I just was born yesterday, that you or someone at this establishment didn't have anything to do with the destruction of our business. You've harassed me. You've followed my social media. You've been doing things unlawful without any consequence. I guarantee you, if I contact anybody today acting like a police officer, they're coming to my front door with the silver bracelets before you can say hoochie mama. But this can go on a year ago. Nothing's done about it, forcing me to have to bring this action before the court. Sad, sad shame. Defendant continues to send unsolicited mail to plaintiff and his spouse despite cease requests. Once again, how in the hell is this possible when their legal attorney, Bonnie, whatever her name is, she's a scam, sends off a demand that we don't attempt to contact McNeill's on any level. We've honored that, yet these scams have tried to send direct mail to my home addressed directly to me and my spouse, on top of contacting me impersonating the Swanton Police Department, on top of watching and following my personal social media platforms, on top of our past dealings with how I was treated during my tenure as their finance manager. And somehow there's no consequences for that. No, we're seeking judgment from the court at this point. The Ohio Civil Rights Commission, OCRC, is investigating defendant McNeill Chevrolet for systematic racial discrimination against African-American customers. Plaintiff filed complaints with the OCRC, the Federal Trade Commission, and Better Business Bureau, which defendant ignored. Several emails to verify that they have just ignored this because their attorney has received these emails, have not even responded, despite the fact that we've escalated these complaints and escalated these complaints and escalated these complaints. There's several numerous violations here, and it's only because I'm African American that I'm treated this way. There's no way that if my skin color was different, that I would have to make 15,000 complaints to every single regulatory agency there is with supporting evidence, including a police report. Guys, I have a police report from the Lucas County Sheriff's Office where he completely spells out that he verified, heard the evidence, yet this was turned in and nothing was done. No, we're not going to stop until we get down to the bottom of what happened to our business. McNeill Chevrolet also gave us potential suspects to report to State Farm. Do you think they questioned those suspects that we turned in? And how did McNeill's know to give us this person? It sounds like to me there's some cahoots going on, and I'm done playing through Fulton County, playing their stupid scamified clown game to figure out what game is going on today. No, we're going to get down to the bottom of this, and we're not going to stop until you're held accountable. Defendant surveillance caused plaintiff's TikTok account to shut down for safety reasons, furthering emotional distress. That was my very first TikTok platform that I built up to 5,000 followers. After I found out and started noticing that this guy was watching my social media platforms, I'm like, what the hell is this? I shut the page down out of safety reasons. These people know where I live. They know where my family is. My family is safety is an issue now. Why are you directly trying to invite my spouse out to this place of this big place of a scam called McNeill's when you know that there's an ongoing complaint involving your former finance manager? Where's the law at? Where's the protection here? If I can't contact you, you shouldn't be able to contact me. How is that okay? Direct invitations all the way up until last week, guys. This complaint started last year, May of last year. We should not be receiving anything from these guys, especially up until last week, 2025. And you want to tell me that this is not harassment? Stop it. Now let's get into the causes of action. Causes of action. Let's start there. First of all, why is this thing freezing up on me? All right. Let's see here. Cause of action. Count 1, racial discrimination and hostile work environment. Defendant created a hostile work environment through severe and pervasive racial harassments, failing to take corrective action. You guys don't believe me? Listen, I have a birthday card that these guys gave me for my birthday. You know that I'm African American. So why would they go and give me a birthday card with a little black boy on the front of the card in front of a 1956 Chevy? You're going to say, oh, it's just a birthday card. It's nice. No, it's a problem because every single individual at that establishment that signed that birthday card was of Caucasian descent. So it clearly paints the picture of what I went through during my tenure as the finance manager of this dealership. Defendant's conduct constitutes unlawful discrimination under ORC 4112. Count 2, retaliation. Defendant retaliated against plaintiff for opposing discriminatory practices by threatening businesses' association and surveilling social media. We talked about this. I was literally told by this representative that if I reported what happened to me by the Swanton Police Department or proceeded after them legally, that the dealership would have to disassociate themselves with me. Impersonation of law enforcement. Mr. Cause impersonated law enforcement to intimidate plaintiff, a misdemeanor of the first degree. Count 4, defendant interfered with the plaintiff's right to contract freely, discriminatory customer loan practices, and post-employment harassment. Based upon all of this crap, I can't get back in the auto industry at all because of the stain of this complaint. No dealership wants to deal with me, regardless of my history, my past, what my skill sets are, because they're too afraid because of this nasty stain that's out in the public because of McNeill's. Count 4, civil rights violations. Defendant interfered with his plaintiff's rights. So we've covered that. Damages and relief sought. Plaintiff seeks compensatory damages exceeding $500,000 for lost income, emotional distress, and reputational harm. Punitive damages for willful and malicious conduct. Injunction of relief enjoining defendant from discriminatory practices and harassment. Attorney's fees and costs under ORC 41-1205. Prayer for relief, wherefore plaintiff requests judgment for compensatory and punitive damages, injunctive relief mandating anti-discrimination training and policy revisions, attorney's fees, costs, and any other further relief deemed just. Certificate of service, legal basis, hostile work environment claims requiring showing severe pervasive conduct altering employment conditions. Retaliation under ORC 41-1202 applies to post-employment actions. Impersonation statutes criminalize false law enforcement representation to facilitate intimidation. Jurisdiction is proper in Lucas County Common Pleas for claims exceeding $500 supporting evidence, witness testimony, emails, OCR, RC filings, police reports documenting impersonation, disparate loan approval data for African-American customers, and social media logs showing defendants improper surveillance. So once again, guys, this once upon a time, small, minute situation has now escalated to a major situation, and we are going to seek judgment. These guys got away with how they mistreated me during my employment. They got away with all the things that they did, but they're not going to get away with how they've been, their recent actions and all the things that they've done. There's heavy suspicion that they were involved with the destruction of our business, although this has not been proven. What has been proven is the complete racial discriminatory practices, racial discrimination that this dealership participates in towards anybody that's African American. You don't believe me? Read the recent documented statements and findings from the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. They don't come with probable cause without a legitimate reason. So I inform you, African Americans, do not support this dealership. Do not patronize this dealership, because behind your back, they're not doing anything but insulting you. This highlights the details of the complaint. I will keep you guys in tune as soon as we get an official case number. But now the heat's on. The chickens are coming home to roost. The games are over. And this has been your episode of Word on the Street Talk TV. I am your host, the Minister, M.L. Kimble. Until next time, be blessed on purpose.
The water shut off at the building, and I explained to her that the state farm has nothing to do with it. That we have to talk to either the water department because they want to do some cleanup and
State Farm under fire for numerous violations of civil rights, privacy violations, breach of contract, bad faith practices, discriminatory practices. Don't trust State Farm.